Lesson 8.4 is on writing rules for linear functions, and the essential question is how can you write a function rule by analyzing a table or a graph? So in the previous lessons, we have learned about functions and to identify what is function and what is not a function. This lesson is going to use the same concept, but instead of just using y equals mx plus b with a function rule, we're going to use function notation. The only difference you have between the rules that you've learned and this new one is the replacement of y into f of x. So to give you an example, I'll write two different equations. So the left side, I have y equals 3x plus 7. In this case, this is going to be the slope and intercept form of an equation, and you're going to have two parts on it. For x, you're going to put a number, so we call that input. And then for y, because after you do 3 times the input plus 7, you get the result or the output, we call y as output. Now this can be true for any number of x that you plug in. You should have a number for a y. For function notation, you're simply going to replace the y into f of x. So your equation for the function notation is going to look like this. F of x equals 3x plus 7. And they're usually going to give you a value of x, so they can replace the x with a value that they give you inside here. So in this function rule, now 3x, x is still going to be the input, and the whole f of x is going to be your output. So we call anything like this that would describe a function as a function rule. So as you can see, these are both equations and they describe a function, how things are going to work for the x value and the y value, or the input and the output. Let's go ahead and look at some example questions to set up an equation, especially with word questions. I know a lot of you guys struggle with word questions. So let's say you go to an ice rink and you're going to rent the ice skates for $10. And then let's say every hour you'll have to pay extra $7 to use the ice rink. And questions like this will usually have another condition. They'll say, find the total amount of money that you'll have to pay for X amount of time. So in this case, I'm going to say find the total amount of money that you have to pay for 5 hours. Now again, I am using simple numbers, so it's easier for you to look at the equation as a whole. So first, I'll have to set up my equation or my function. My function is going to start with f of x. In this case, you can use two different letters. I'm going to use C for cost and then H for hour. So my cost for hour, and that's going to replace my Y. And I am going to have my hour as H, obviously, and it's going to be $7 every hour. So I can start with $7 each hour, but then I have to borrow ice skates, so I'll have to add 10 to my equation. So my C of H, where C is the cost and H is the hour, 7H plus 10 will give me the cost for the equation. Now, I am going to replace my H with 5, so if my C of 5 needs to be found, I'm going to do 7 times 5 plus 10, which is going to be 35 plus 10. So my final answer is going to be C of 5 is going to be $45. So like I said, whenever you have questions like this, you're going to have two parts. First, finding the equation, and second, plugging in the numbers that they give you to find out the answer when you plug in the certain number. So before we move on to the next topic, go ahead and draw a little ice skate next to your name for some extra credit today. Now, writing rules from tables and graphs may be a little harder, especially for tables because you may not see the direct relationship easily. So we're going to follow the pattern. We know that the slope m is going to be rise over run, or the y value over the x value. So first you're going to look for the slope m, which you're going to have two parts: difference in f of x values, which is the same thing as the y values, over the difference in x values. I'm just going to put that sign for the same thing. So you're going to find the difference in those two parts. So basically your usual y values are going to be just replaced with f of x, and then your x values are going to stay the same. Now we know that we have the plus b part, which is the y-intercept. So the b value is going to be f of x when x equals 0. That means you're going to plug in 0 for the x, and whatever number that you get is going to be your answer for b. So let's go ahead and actually try a couple of questions because sometimes it makes more sense when you look into the charts or graph. So for the chart, I am going to make a t-chart. I have x on one side and f of x on the other side. And I'm going to have a pair, kind of like x and y coordinates. So I'm going to have the number for x on the left side, number for the f of x, the output on the right side. And let's say I have a set of numbers like this. I have x2, 0, -2, and -4, and I have f of x as 3, -5, -13, and -21. So first I am going to find out the rules of the slope. So I'm going to look for the difference in the f of x values and difference in x values. So I'm just going to see what kind of rules I see in between these numbers. So first thing that I see is I am moving down by 2s as I go down the chart. So I write the rules as subtracting 2s from the previous number. And for my f of x, or the y value, or the output, I'm going to start from 3 and then I go into the negatives. From 3 to -5, I'll have to subtract 8. And I'm just going to see if the rule follows through the whole chart. -5 from -13, I'm also going to subtract -8, and same thing from -13 to -21. So I'm continuously subtracting -8. So I see the rules like this. So what I'm going to do is for slope m, I put m equals the difference of the f of x values. So I'm going to put -8 on the top, and then the difference between the x values, which are going to be -2s consistently. So I have -8 over -2, which is going to give me a +4 as my answer. Now I have to find out my b value, which is going to be my y-intercept, and for us it's very convenient because I already have the x of 0 here. So when f of 0, I have -5. So my y-intercept, or my b value, is going to be a -5. So in turn, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the equation as f of x equals 4x minus 5. So mind you, I am not writing y equals because I'm using the function rule, function notation. So I have f of x equals 4x minus 5 as my final answer, trying to write the rules from the table. I'm going to work with graphs now. I'm giving you the 2 points so you can go ahead and start graphing them. And I'll be graphing too, but since it moves faster, you can go ahead and pause this video whenever you need to draw the graph. So I drew a graph 4 by 4, and I'm going to also graph the coordinate points. 0, -2 is right here, and then 2, 2 is right here, and then you just go ahead and connect them. So I drew the graph. It's not going to be exactly accurate just because I don't have all the grid with me, but it should be quite simple to find out the answer. So the good thing about graphs is that you can see the y-intercept right away, and I already have it right here. So my y-intercept is going to be 0, -2, so b, I already have it, is going to be -2. And then I have these 2 points, so if you have a graph, you can just move and count the numbers going up and down to see what your slope is going to be. I know it's a positive slope and positive number because the graph is going up as you go more to the right. So I start from here, and then I'm going to, let's say I just go all the way to 2, 2. So I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go 1, 2 to the right. So 4 over 2 for a slope, and that can be simplified into just positive 2. So my function f of x is going to be then 2x minus 2. So really, this is all you have to do to find out the rules. It may be a little more challenging for some people to use the table or the graph. I feel like, if anything, it may be more challenging to use the tables just because they're not as clear visually. But as you just follow the rules, like I mentioned here, you should be able to find out the function rule. Homework is going to be uploaded on Google Classroom and Facts, and also right here.